Greetings and welcome to Allen Training Center's series of executive briefings. Today we're going to be talking about workplace stress and how managing workplace stress is absolutely essential for your organization to reach its maximum potential. I'm Vaughn Sigmund. I'm with Allen Training Centers here in Huntington Beach, California. Today we're going to talk about 4 key points. Those 4 key points include high levels of stress and how they create anxiety and keep you from being the best you and having the highest level of impact at work. There's also the physiological reaction to stress, where it's like death by 1,000 cuts. It slowly wears on you, and wears on you. Now, often we learn to cope with this stress, but at the end of the day, it is insidious and it catches up to us and simply wears away our ability to lead and manage at our highest levels. We're going to talk about some of the easy to implement techniques that you can put to use and immediately start helping relieve your workplace stress. And we're going to talk about some strategies and techniques throughout the course of this program. So you might want to grab a pen, some paper, write down my email address for any questions after this briefing. My email is Vaughn, VAUGHN, at vsigmund.com. That's V as in Victor, S as in Sam, IGMON. Vaughn at vsigmund.com. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have at the end of you enjoying this executive briefing. So let's stop and think for just a moment. How has being stressed out at work negatively impacted your performance? Very often, again, going back to that death by 1,000 cuts, it creeps up on you, changes your mood, changes your attitude, changes how well you're making decisions, how quickly you can make decisions. And a key point I want you to be able to grasp, hold on to, and remind yourself on a regular basis as a manager and a leader, as a business owner, whether you're a business owner, an executive in a corporation, a manager of a small to medium-sized team, a department supervisor. If you're managing people, always understand that your team feeds off of your emotion. They're watching and feeding off of you all day, every day. So it's imperative. It's your responsibility to make sure you're doing everything you can to manage your stress. It's almost impossible to hide it. Some people believe that they can. You need to quit fooling yourself because you just aren't as good as you think you are. Now let's think about some of the stressful situations we're in on a regular basis. Much of it has to do with people. Think about working and interacting with a person who reports to you that's caused you stress. My gosh, in my career, I've got hundreds of these situations. And even though I'm the boss, somebody working for me is causing me stress. Yeah, you know whose fault that is? You got it. It's my fault because I didn't deal with it. Just because I share these things doesn't mean I'm 100% perfect at these things. But I can tell you I've practiced everything we're talking about today, and they all do work. How about a time that you had to interact with a peer at work that created stress? We're not all meant to get along out there. Mutual respect is one that's earned, and sometimes a co-worker just has not earned that mutual respect, and it tends to come across from you sometimes. And that in turn, again, remember this feeding off of you and your emotions, it affects the whole room. It affects everybody around you, everybody you work with. So be conscious of that, be aware of that, and if there's some way you can deal with it, and we're going to talk about some of those ways of dealing with it later in the presentation today, you should. And of course, there's a time when interacting with the person you report to, or better known as the boss. I got to tell you, I've had some great bosses. I've had some that every time the phone rings, my stomach turned. It was like, oh no, what's next? And who allows that? I allowed that. And we're going to talk again about some of those techniques to avoid that. So a very common theme throughout your journey through being able to get on top of your workplace stress is understanding that people, well, that creates a great deal of the stress that you experience at work. Now, stress is costly. And just a quick self-examination, how many times in this past 6 months would you say that your stress level was so high that you weren't exactly your best you at work? And you multiply that over every manager or employee within your organization, then apply that over all the organizations and companies across the country. It's a tremendous amount of wasted time and money and lost productivity that these situations cost every organization. So be aware that it's not only a mental health issue, not that I'm a practitioner, but it does create a cost issue, and not only how well you're performing, but all those around you, how well they're performing as well. So I'm going to cover 6 steps to stress reduction today. And they are, number 1, manage your workplace time more effectively. Time management, in other words. And in fact, as we go through the remainder of the 6, time management it bleeds through almost all of these. Having a stress-reducing attitude is number 2. Number 3, avoid being too friendly with your subordinates or coworkers or employees. Number 4 of the 6 strategies, strategically focus on what's really important. Keep the main thing the main thing. It's easy to lose sight of that. Number 5, spend as little time as possible working in areas you're not very good at and you don't enjoy doing. And typically we don't enjoy things that we're not very good at. And we're going to talk about some ways to identify that and what to do about it. And then number 6, this is one that I've gotten caught in so many times in my career, and that's not monitoring how things are progressing. I've been a manager and leader for over 40 years of companies large and small, with large and small teams reporting to me. And I got to tell you, this one's caught me a few times. Is I've got a high level of trust, and if you're like me, it'll bite you in the rear end from time to time. So let's talk about the number 1 strategy to managing your time effectively. Let's identify where you are as a time manager. Ask yourself these questions. Do you spend too much time with workplace distractions? Is your door flying open every 5 minutes, or people constantly popping in to chat or talk with you or ask you questions? Do you have too many visitors? This is a huge part of what takes away from people's productivity during the course of the day, and in turn creates levels of stress. It makes them having to come in early the next day because they didn't get as much done the day before as they needed to. It extends their timeline on projects and things to do. So managing your visitors, maybe even having a closed door policy, not that you need to keep your door closed and locked all the time, but you need to have a policy in the workplace for everybody to have a GSD time, get stuff done time. And when your door is closed, people need to respect that and maybe not just come barging in. Think about it. Overscheduling meetings. This couples with another challenge that many of us face, including me, is the inability to say no. Often I have been drug into meetings that once I get there and I'm 10, 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes into this meeting, I'm wondering, why am I here? this really doesn't affect me, and I don't have much to say or much effect that I can put into this meeting either. So overscheduling meetings, having too many meetings with the wrong people, attending meetings that maybe you don't really need to be a part of. Be selective in the meetings, not only that you schedule for yourselves, but the ones you attend. Focusing on the wrong activities. Making sure that we're delegating, time managing well, time blocking. If you've got big, important projects, you've got to get those on a calendar. That couples with that closed door policy where you can close the door and get your big, important projects and initiatives accomplished. Reading emails all day long, getting sucked in to email, text, social media. Those are the wrong kind of activities that take you away from getting things accomplished during the course of the day. And in turn, it creates stress for you. Avoiding delegation. This is a very common one in people who are fairly controlling or untrusting. Maybe they've had a bad experience in delegating workloads to other people. It didn't go well, and now they can't trust anybody to delegate work to. And very often that poor follow through with whoever they delegated the workload through is self-inflicted, because I've seen this happen very often. People will delegate work or projects, things to do, to people who have not been trained to fully implement that at the same level that you as the delegator would expect. So training and understanding, having the right conversations, asking the right questions up front will generally create this avoidance of delegation because of bad experiences in the past. So this is where I'm going to ask you right off the bat to start committing to making some changes about how you manage your time and manage yourself during the course of the day. Number 2, having a stress-reducing attitude. Again, I find myself falling victim to this from time to time, is I can only control what I can control. I can't change things that are out of my control. I can't go on looking in the rearview mirror and wondering what I should have done rather than what I should be doing. So you've got to live and face your day as a leader and a manager looking through the windshield, not the rearview mirror. And understand that you need to proactively change the things that are only within your control. Some things you just had no ability to control. And if you worry too much about things you can't control, again, that's what creates a lot of stress. Being emotionally resilient. Sometimes you just got to understand that worrying about it, failure, getting in trouble with the boss, it's a learning opportunity. Failure is one of the best things that can happen to many people in their career. Yeah, I said that. Failures are learning opportunities. And if you can adjust your thought process to accepting that failures are okay, you don't want them. You certainly aren't out trying to make mistakes and create failures. But when you do, when things don't go well, learn from it. Understand what you need to do differently in the future, but do not continue beating yourself up about what's already happened and you can't change it. Routines. Develop and use routines. I got to tell you, I'm very good at this, but I happen to live and work in a household and an office where others around me may not have the best of routines. I can tell you a typical scenario that happens multiple times during the course of the week is someone may be going out the door and all of a sudden they realize, where's my phone? Where did I leave my phone? Hey, will you call my phone? And they're looking under chairs, looking under paper, looking in their briefcase, going out to their car, coming back in. Hey, call my phone to see if it rings. Rather than creating a place for that phone or their keys or their briefcase or their purse just getting in a routine to everything has a place and everything in its place. And there's other routines you need to be able to develop for yourself as well. But a to-do list is a very important one. Keeping and maintaining a to-do list. It is amazing how when you take thoughts of things that you have to get accomplished, questions you need to ask, just things that have to get done, and it comes out of your brain, it travels down through your arm, through your fingers, to a pen, to a piece of paper, how stress reducing that is. I can tell you that one of my most popular talking events is time management. And I spend a fair amount of time during my presentation on creating to-do lists and including this one, which I will generally ask the room, how many people in this room will wake up in the middle of the night and their mind starts going and they start worrying and thinking about all the things they need to do with the inability to fall back to sleep? And I got to tell you, most of the time, most of the hands get raised in that room. But then when I ask them the next question, which is the important question, how many keep and maintain a to-do list as a routine religiously every day? Well, most of those hands are the people who are waking up at night, stressed out and worried. Well, those hands go down when I start asking about a to-do list. So I can tell you personally that I do an exceptional job at keeping a to-do list and calendarizing things and time blocking and scheduling things for myself. And that way I reduce my own personal stress from getting the best of me. And I just make routines and schedule things to make sure I do stay on top of it. So back to the attitude. Let go of the past. Quit looking in the rearview mirror. What's done is done. Move on. Learn from it. Learn what not to do next time. Don't give in to procrastination. Very often I've come across business owners, CEOs, executives who they've moved up the corporate ladder and now they are giving themselves the right to procrastinate on certain things because, hey, they're the boss. They've earned the right to do that. But let me tell you, that's very punitive. Don't give in to procrastination. Again, if you schedule things, you put it on your calendar, you're way less likely to procrastinate. But I can tell you that procrastination creates a tremendous amount of stress because in the end, these things have got to get done. And those of you who say, well, hey, Vaughn, I work really well under stress. I love a timeline. Man, put the pressure on me. I get stuff done. Well, of course you do, because it's got to get done. Is that a healthy way to approach being a leader, being a manager? No, it's not very healthy. Procrastination is very, very troubling. And deep down, you can convince yourself and tell you whatever story you want to tell yourself that you're great at certain things and you need this pressure and you need these timelines, yada, yada, yada. You're way better off scheduling things and doing things on schedule. Now, will distractions come along? Will other things come along that will keep you from getting things done? Well, of course they will. But don't give in to procrastination. Don't use that as a regular approach to doing business. Also, I think I don't have to say this to anybody that's listening to this executive briefing today, but being committed to ongoing learning needed to become more valuable in your organization. Well, you're doing it right now. You're listening to this briefing. You're learning how to manage stress. Maybe you've listened to some of the other really good executive briefings that Allen Training has available to you. Commit to self-improvement. The better you get, the better everybody around you gets. The better everybody around you gets, the better your company becomes. I call that transformational triangle of change. Transformational triangle of change. Get yourself better. Everybody around you will improve. And then in the end, your entire organization will be better off. Step 3. This may seem so obvious, but avoid being too friendly with the people you work with. It's really hard to be unbiased about about friends, people you become close to, family members. I got to tell you, I recently had to help out one of my executive coaching clients fire his brother-in-law. And his brother-in-law was okay on his best days and was pretty bad on his normal days. And he stayed in that position probably a year or two too long. But because my client didn't want to disappoint his sister, didn't want to disappoint the mom, didn't want to disappoint certainly the kids to this family, he kept giving this brother-in-law chance after chance after chance to improve. The problem was that, well, it's called the Peter Principle. Some people can only rise to the level of competency that they've been wired to, that God has created for them. And this person was way beyond their competency level, their ability to perform this job function. They had major flaws that could not be masked or overcome. And my executive client had lived with that way too long. And there's some people listening to this executive briefing today that's going to ring true. I learned this lesson very early. When you become too friendly or become friends with people you work with, rarely, when times get tough or you need them, well, they reciprocate in the way that you've been able to take very good care of them. So it's hardly ever worth it. Yes, in times of disaster, these folks may come through for you, but when the pressure's on at work, more often than not, I've been let down. So don't allow yourself to get blind spots. Don't allow yourself to be biased, either positively or negatively, because you've gotten too close to people at work. This is absolutely asking for added tension and stress on your part. Number 4, strategically focus on what is really important at work. Remember I said earlier, keep the main thing the main thing. Have goals. Use SMART goals, specific, measurable, agreed upon, realistic, and time-bound. Create strategies to achieve those goals. Get them in writing. Create action plans to complete those strategies. Once again, going back to the to-do list thought process. So many people carry their goals and their strategies around in their head. And they become way more achievable and more likely to be achieved when they come out of your head, down your arm, through your fingers, through the pen to a piece of paper. Once there's something that is mentally motivating about writing these things down, it's the reason why every self-help guru on the planet it said, write your goals down, post them up on your mirror, look at them every day. There's a reason for all that. And it's absolutely true. And if you fight that, well, you're just limiting your ability to advance yourself. Now, I don't want to get on a Tony Robbins bandwagon here, but I can tell you that when you create goals and strategies, write them down, follow them, put timelines to them, it reduces stress in your life, and you are a way better leader and manager. Step number 5. Minimizing working in areas in which you're not good at or do not enjoy, and man, can I relate to this one. If you're not detail-oriented, as I am not detail-oriented, you need to delegate, outsource, get somebody else to keep the books, to build the spreadsheets, to write the articles. Yeah, you can be creative and get it written down or get the basics of it, but the details of it, and the devil's always in the details, have somebody that's very detail-oriented surrounding you to make sure you can be the best you can be, because I can tell you, the end of the year, every year, it starts becoming crunch time to get the books closed out, get the P&Ls done, get the taxes ready to go, and I'm not very good at that. And again, let me remind you, I don't always follow through with my own advice. And this is one I need to be better at myself. But if you can outsource by the technology to do things you're not very good at, delegate it to somebody else that is much better at it. I've always hired administrative assistants back in my corporate life that were highly detail oriented because I'm not. So you've got to surround yourself with either the people who counteract your shortcomings, but more importantly, you need to admit to your shortcomings, understand what they are. You can't change them for the most part. If you're not a people person, you're not a people person. If you're not very good at detail, you're not going to be very good at detail. Understand that. Be transparent. Admit to it. You're a better leader because of it. And the job's going to get done a whole lot better when an expert's doing it, or somebody that really enjoys doing that sort of thing that you don't like doing and you're not very good at. Just take the stress off yourself. And number 6, monitor how things are progressing. It's so important to know how you're tracking towards achieving your long-term and short-term goals. And so you've got to, again, there's where a routine comes in. Have a routine progress. To inspect progress, I should say. Have a routine to inspect progress. When you're laying out your strategies, your goals, your tactics, make sure you've got mile markers that are built into those to stop and check up on things. And it's got to be more than how things going. Looking good? Okay, thanks. Keep me posted. If you need me for anything, let me know. It's got to be a lot more than that. You've got to have regular meetings or conference calls to talk to those who are involved in getting the strategies achieved, the goals accomplished. And believe me, you need to inspect what you expect. And don't allow yourself to get fooled through your trusting nature. If you are one of those highly trusting people, learn from me. Go and see. Don't just take people's word for it. Make sure that's part of your routine. Is at regular intervals, not every single day, not every single week, not every single time do you need to do this. But you need to go and see to make sure that what they're telling you is in the same level of understanding as what good looks like to you, or almost there looks like to you. It's way easier to course correct early in a project than late. So your go and see should potentially come earlier as things progress rather than later. And understand it's inevitable things are going to go wrong. And if things are not getting done and accomplished and achieved by the dates you're considered necessary, maybe you need to change your approach or change the dates. Don't put extra pressure on everybody to hit a date when potentially that date is movable. Now, I've worked under high stress situations where dates could not be moved, whether I was launching a chain of stores or grand opening a location or a whole district of stores. And believe me, when you got 30 stores opening in the same day in one market, well, that creates a lot of stress. But you can't give up. So even when things are not being accomplished, things aren't going the way you expected them to go, don't give up. Don't give up on this getting attained, being attained. Go back and figure out what went wrong. Change your course of action. Again, looking in the windshield, not the rearview mirror. Learn from it. And to sum it all up, avoid surprises. The more you ask, the more you inspect, the more you go and see, without taking too much time away from your main responsibilities. Avoid surprises. And these kind of surprises are the ones that create a ton of stress for you. You can also reduce the quality of work. Good enough is very often the enemy of great. And if things have not achieved the quality that you expected it to be, and you find out too late in the game, guess what? Good enough becomes acceptable. And you don't always want to follow that route, do you? No, you don't. So that's the end of my executive briefing today. I appreciate you taking the time today. I ask you to do this. Write out an action plan based on some of the strategies and approaches that I shared with you today at reducing your workplace stress. It shouldn't exceed 100 words. But again, writing it down, committing to some changes, putting some dates in there to make sure that you're holding yourself accountable to getting things done in a certain amount of time will be huge. So thank you all very much.